name is Mike Rosenthal. I'm the chair of the trustees committee. So I will be walking you through some of our major plans for the rest of this year and into the future. Please, there's paper on the table, so if you think of a question as we're going along, write it down so you can remember. If you're like me, you'll forget it by the next slide. And then at the end, we'll ask it. And then at the end of the presentation, we will have a tour, so I can walk you through so you can see some of the damage we're talking about. And if you're having to run off to the second service, Bruce will be back in this space after the second service and can lead another tour. So we'll take you through, show you where some of the pipes are, what have you. So anyhow, too close to the screen. And anytime you can't hear or understand me, or I'm going too fast, I'm going to do something on that. So what we're going to discuss is I'm going to tell you how we're currently working the trustees. We're going to talk about our special projects that are coming up, which is the HVAC and drainage issues. Other needs that are available that we need to look at sometime in the future in the church, and our funding. The trustees do our general planning. The foundation, which is a wonderful tool that we have in this church, generates about 6% income per year. That's so that we can, it's quasi-conservative so that we don't fluctuate real up and down. So this year that was about $300,000. About half of that gets used to support the annual budget and special appeals, like the Love Thy Neighbor campaign that we had earlier this year. Part of that funding came from the foundation. So we try to leave half to do that, and then we take the other half and we use that for building improvements. That's capital improvements, emergency repairs. We had some in 2024. First thing we're going to talk about is the HVAC system. It's original, most of it is original to when this building was built. So that's 70 years old. Most of it, 8 of the air handlers are from 1955, so they've not been touched. They usually give them about a 50-year life, so you can tell that we're past the useful life of those, so we're on borrowed time. Those air handlers are predominantly that direction where we haven't had any recent upgrades. So you're talking the sanctuary, the parlor, the chapel, meeting hall, the offices to a certain extent, the choir room, the education rooms. Those are still the old air handlers. And then we have 6 newer ones that were upgraded, like when we did this space, we put a new air handler in to handle this area. When we did the gathering place, there was a newer air handler put in there. So we updated them as we went. We had a recent leak in the heating system last year that basically made 2 of the Rainbow Factory rooms unavailable for 6 months. Well, we got a new heat source and corrections in. Probably if you've been in this church long enough, you know that the temperature controls on the wall are there more for decoration than anything else. They're a pneumatic system which uses compressed air to move a valve. So if you get a leak in that airline or what have you, or the valves are old, 70 years old, they freeze up and stop working. The other thing that we've all noticed is we only do a changeover from heat to air or air to heat twice a year. And invariably, we always pick the wrong date. We pick it and then we get a heat wave or a cold wave or something, and you know, it's like, we'll just kick it back to air, you know, because it's a 3-day changeover process. So what we decided, especially after the Rainbow Factory issue, is that we needed to start doing a plan for how we're going to upgrade the HVAC system. So this is just an example of some of the piping we have and the corrosion you can see. And that's just the stuff that's where we can walk around easily and see them. As you can see, you can actually see condensation right in there, dripping off of that, because those pipes have 50-degree water running through them. That's how we get our chilled water. And then, like our really humid days, you would create like your water glass in the summer. This is one of the air handlers that's in Mead lower level. That one says it supports the parlor. So as you can say, it's old. There's some piping that runs to those, to the hallway. So anyway, we look at what would be our preferred method of an AC system here. We look for something that would be greener, more efficient, would allow for individual room control, where we could have one room that's maybe on the south side that's got bright sunlight shining in. They may want air conditioning today. And another room that's on the north side of the building is cold, and so they would rather have heat, and it would be a system that would be able to do all of those things. We would have all new piping, and we would have centralized control, so we could even off of a controller be able to control temperature in individual rooms. That came back at a $7.75 million estimate. Suffice it to say, most of us on the committee fell off our chairs because we were expecting in the $3 to $4 million range. So that came up. So we said, okay, we've got to come up with another solution. We've got things that need to change, but we can't afford $7.75 million. So our alternative was to replace the sanctuary air handler. That's a 7-ton unit. The one in your house is probably a ton to a ton and a half. So to give you an idea of size. If that air handler was to go out at the beginning of summer, we would not have air conditioning until the fall, because it takes 16 to 20 weeks to order a new air handler and get it built. We have some piping in this building that the contractors are even afraid to touch because they're afraid they'll start a leak or they'll blow the pipe. He said if we had a grading system, he said F would be too good of a grade for it. That's how bad they were. We also wanted to replace the secondary piping that goes to the radiators, because that's where the Rainbow Factory leak occurred. So we would do that and replace that piping. We'd start to install the centralized control system, because once we have that, as we bring other systems online, we can plug into that system and then just keep going. We wanted to upgrade the temperature controller so that we'd be able, so if you say, I need a little more heat here, you can get a little more heat. Or I need a little less air conditioning, I can get a little less air conditioning. And then we also wanted to convert to electronic valves throughout the building. And what that buys us is, when it's time for Kevin, right now, to change from heat to cool or cool to heat, instead of a 3-day process, he walks in and presses a button, and it opens and closes the appropriate valves. That should give us the ability to say, oh, we have a special event coming up, the sanctuary is going to be full, we need to bring air conditioning online for that day. And so we could be able to, like on a day-by-day basis, convert back and forth within reason. So that was our alternative. So this is what the cost is. The sanctuary air handler, the building management system, is $5.45 million, or excuse me, thousand. Replace the main pipes in the north wing. So we're replacing the run from basically starting in the annex building, going all the way up around the north and coming back down here. Those are all the pipes that were in the sorriest shape. And that's $220,000. Upgrading all the radiators to digital, which gets rid of the pneumatic system, which gives us better control. That's $300,000 and some change. Upgrade the main valves to digital. That's so that we get the one button push system. We've got that. Changing the branch lines. That's that amount of money. Now what they're not replacing are the ones in the Ed wing going off to the east, because those are behind walls or in ceilings, which means we have to demo those rooms down to get to that piping. And as you can see, for the Mead Hall ceiling and light replacement. It was just $100 grand to pull that ceiling down and replace it. So you can kind of extrapolate what that expense would be in other rooms. The other thing that they discovered is most of our piping isn't labeled. So as a contractor comes in, they have to spend more time tracing the lines back to the source, where if we get them adequately labeled, it should help us in future things. So our proposed cost is $1.646 million, which is quite a bit better. But as they get to working around, we may have some additional costs, and we just don't know what we're running into. So just to give you an example, this is the air handler that's back behind this wall up here that supports this room. So as you can see, it's about the size of a minivan. So you can see we can't walk down to one of those and pick one up on the floor and replace it. So those have to be designed and ordered and installed. So that's kind of the reason it takes a long lead time. And this is the air handlers in the meat chapel parlor. And then after we do that, we still have parlor, chapel, meat hall air handlers that will need to be upgraded sometime in the future. However, if they go offline, it's less of an impact on the congregation because we could offload the uses of those buildings to other places around. The church offices and gathering place, that's from the gathering place, so that's from 1969. The East Ed wings, those are old air handlers still. North Ed wing still has an old air handler. Choir room, the vendor said it was 1955, but that wing wasn't added until 1975 after the tornado. So I don't know if the air handler was always there and just hadn't been used until they put the building in. I don't know. So that's why the two dates are there. We also have two small air conditioners in the organ loft that helps maintain temperature and humidity for the pipe organ. Don't know when those were installed. I know they were since I've been a member here and rejoined in '80. So we go there. Commons and Kitchen also has their own air handler, but again, that's from the newer thing. We have the secondary radiator upgrades from the southwest wing and additional piping needs as we go along. So the pros of this system is the foundation was able to cover our costs. And the advantage of that was because they could guarantee the cost, we could sign the contracts right away and get everything going so that we could get everything installed hopefully by the end of the year. We should get improved temperature control in the rooms. We should reduce some of our risk for system failure. We're not eliminating all of it. The new systems should give us 20 to 50 years of life. So we joke that if that'll happen, then I will be gone and I won't have to worry about it again. And it should allow us for more frequent system changeover. Disadvantage is we're still updating the existing system, so we're not getting the big green effect that, as Bob always reminds us, we only spend $100,000 a year for utilities in this building. That also includes water, electricity, and stuff like that. So we're not, even if we did the grand and glorious one, we would still have an energy bill. So we can't pay for our changes just from energy savings. We still have piping and components that will fail. We're just hoping we got rid of the worst ones and limited efficiency improvements. The timeline, the sanctuary air handler has been ordered. It's being built. I asked Friday when they think that would be installed, and they're thinking right now November. And that one is stored in the steeple. So if you look at the north side of the steeple, there's a big grill on the side. That's the air handlers behind that. So they'll take that out, pull the old one out, swing the new one in, and do all that work. Meat hall, rooms 111, 112, 120. They've already started the piping changes. This last week they did asbestos abatement. All of our pipes from 1955 are wrapped in asbestos, so we have to pay extra to have that insulation taken off. And then this whole north wing, once they start repiping, will not have chilled water anymore. The air handler will have air movement, but it'll be hot in here, or could be. Today it wouldn't be bad. And so you as a congregation need to be flexible as we move you around to different rooms. 111 and 112 are quasi-usable on Sunday mornings. They're going to be kind of, as you take the tour, you'll see that they're there. You could set up tables and use it, but it is a work site. So if you look out one of the courtyard doors, we have do not enter. That's the door. The holes are right outside those doors, so they can walk in and out. And they don't have trips in the building. This is some of the piping. This one on the right is the hole that is. I don't know if you can kind of see that pipe right there. That's where the pipe is going under the courtyard from the boiler room into this wing. So that's some of the pipe they're replacing. Can't tell where the other one is. Oh, I know, that's also 112. This is the ceiling in Mead Hall, which is below the chapel. And so they pulled that all down and opened it up because all the radiator piping is in the ceiling that goes into the chapel. So, then our next enhancement that we're doing is for the courtyard. We've had some rain issues. We have the gutters overflow, and I have a video that will show you that. And then we had people come in and scope our drain lines to see what the problem is. So the drain line that supports the gutters on this side of the building are clogged with roots, and so they recommend digging them up and replacing them. We have erosion because the gutters overflow. We have that little hill that washes all the dirt down onto the head, and then we also have a hole where water goes mysteriously somewhere. We don't know. And then we've had water in the gathering club. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but we'll get a little flood right where the sofas are right now. And we just got that fixed. We had somebody excavate those because we thought we had it clogged, and it wasn't clogged. The pipe was never connected to the storm system after the gathering place was put in. So, hence all that water that falls in the tower goes down there and has no place to go. And we're also afraid that that might cause some foundation issues under the building if we don't do anything. And then we also want to update the appearance and usability of the area. So, Ruth, or Marita, if you want to click that. This was from the March rainstorm.
Well, it doesn't seem like our gutters are quite clear in what we want to do.
So anyway.
Kind of overflowing.
So we've experienced it. Some of that was clogged downspouts, but even with those cleared out, we still have problems with water. And then here's the next one.
Okay, I was doing a little investigating here to see where all this water's going. Here's what it looks like. You see, gather there and it's flowing pretty good here.
This is the hole to where we don't know where it's going.
Quite sure where that is.
And that's the one that concerns me about foundation. That's undermining the foundation. So that's what we're kind of looking at upgrading. That's the problem we're running into. And then this is the water we get to gather in place after heavy rains like that. This is one of the access tunnels for the piping that all the pipes that go out to this end of the building. And if you notice the water there, that's on the other side. That's just below the gathering place where it's leaking. So we have a lot of water in there. And we usually try to get it all cleaned up before Sunday morning, so that's why you may not know it's there. This is our pipe to nowhere. As you can see right there, that's where the pipe out of the steeple for the steeple drains ended. And it was just never connected. Subcontractor kind of did a fail there.
Do we know who that is? They should come back and fix it.
Well, they should. They're probably out of business or retired, or I don't know. But anyway, these were the size holes that we cut in the gathering place to fix all of that stuff. So our courtyard plans are we're going to replace the storm sealer on the east because that should fix our gutter overflow issue, or we're hoping. In order to do that, we have to remove the trees and shrubs, which they're getting a little too large anyway. We're going to add some additional drain inlets so that if the gutters do overflow, they'll overflow into another gutter or another drain that'll help get the water away from the building. We're going to add a retaining wall, so instead of having that nice sloped hill, we'll have a couple of walls that'll help, we hope, prevent some of the washout. We're going to, if you noticed on the video that Kevin was kind of standing on the sidewalk outside his office, or 111 or 112, so we're going to extend that sidewalk out a little bit so that the gutters hit it instead of dirt. And also raise it up to door level so that if you want to wheel something out from 112 out onto that patio and maybe have a class out there, you can. And then we're also going to do minimal landscaping. So we haven't gotten the final bid on that yet, but the guy seems to think it would be somewhere between $250,000 to $300,000. We'll know more probably in 2 weeks on that. Then our windows, most of them are also from 1955. They're single pane. In the wintertime, I've been told that like 112 has ice built up on the inside because they're energy efficient. We did upgrade the choir room in 114 because those were wood windows and they were leaking or falling apart. If it rained hard, you would get rain into the rooms. So we replaced those. And then because Rainbow Factory, we changed and deactivated the radiators, we added the windows so that they would have better temperature control in those rooms. So we have 95 remaining single pane windows, and that's going to be an approximate cost of $300,000. However, we're proposing that not be done except as we're upgrading the rooms. So if we're in there working on the room to upgrade it or replace carpet or something, then we'll come in and do windows. And then we're hoping to do that with our annual foundation money. So here's like the youth window before it was removed, and this is as they were installing our new ones. And all of our weird shaped windows are the most expensive. And that's the sacristy window, which was also a single pane glass. These are the choir windows that were wood. Dave Kazire, I think, opened one of the bottom wings to let air in during a bell choir rehearsal, and the window fell out. So that was one of our reasons for wanting to replace that. The other thing we have is we have some old solid core doors that are still around the building. 10 singles, so there's a single off this stairway, there's a single off all the rooms here. We have double doors like on either side of the sanctuary, one in the back. Some of those have pretty good sized gaps. Bruce's furry friends, the four legs have been seen running into them to get away from him. The doors are starting to delaminate because, again, they're 70-year-old doors. Total replacement of those doors would be around $65,000. And again, on the single doors, probably as we're upgrading a room, we would replace the doors at that time. Other future needs that are on the horizon, we are a masonry building. I don't think we've been much tuck pointing done. When I was checking the steeple for our bee colony, which, if you haven't heard, we have bees inhabiting part of our steeple. We have some pretty good gaps in the stonework, so we need to work at some masonry tuck pointing. The stonework outside door 1, which is the main south entrance to the sanctuary, you've noticed that's been bumped several times by probably snow blowers and what have you, and it does have some leaking in it. We'd like to improve improve that look. We want to update all the classrooms and offices with new flooring, lighting, paint, furniture, doors and windows as needed. Probably upgrade some of the public area carpeting. I'd say the sanctuary hasn't been painted since we did the sanctuary remodel back in 98, 99. And other things like a new sound system or an improved sound system, electronics that we need, grounds and appliances. So those are the things that are coming in. Those aren't big things, but those will be things that we'll be having to pay for into the future. So the church has basically two pools of money. They have the church budget, and that church budget is funded by your pledges and gifts. And it basically supports the programs, the buildings, the salaries, apportionments, basically our year-to-year stuff that we pay for every year. Net budget is around $7.73 thousand, or 9.73. And then we have a foundation, which has been put in place to take care of our future needs. And that's funded by gifts and estates, and that supports the church budget, special requests like Love Thy Neighbor, capital improvements, emergency repairs. Anytime we need money that is more than the church budget can support, we kind of lean on the foundation. And right now, as of last foundation meeting, that was worth about $5.89 million. Now, if we're going to take $2 million out, $1 to $2 million out to take care of these major projects, that's going to decrease by $2 million. So you understand that it's not a bottomless pot of money that we can do. So the funding for these projects, the initial HVAC changes that we're doing, foundation is guaranteed. That allowed trustees to sign contracts to get the work going right away, so that we can get done by the end of the year. The courtyard changes will also be foundation supported. And then we're hoping to use the annual income off the foundation accounts to pay for everything else, which is the window and doors, updating your classrooms and offices, things like that. And the advantage of the foundation, it allows us to respond to needs quickly without depending on an annual budget, a loan, or any kind of a special appeal. So that's the end of my yakking. Does anybody have any questions?
Who's the contractor that you're using for the HVAC?
HVAC is Cirrus, which used to be called MMC. I keep getting it confused with Metropolitan Community College. But MMC. And so it's Cirrus. They're the ones that have been repairing a lot of our piping throughout the last several years. And then they're contracting with Morrissey, who's doing our HVAC design work. And he's the one that came up with our solution for the Rainbow Factory. Some information on the Rainbow Factory: when the radiators went south, most of the radiators are accessible through a tunnel. They weren't. They were underground. So it came out, went underground, came back up. And what we didn't know is we didn't know what direction they ran. So we didn't know how much of a floor we were going to have to cut out to get to them. So we decided to go away from the radiators in those rooms and just use forced air. Any other questions?
Doing the math, how much will the immediate changes that the foundation is going to deplete the endowment?
All right. Question was, how much are these changes deplete the foundation? So you saw we had 5 point something. It's going to go down 2 million. So so that's just what's going to happen. Unless somebody here wants to write us a check.
So what is that going to do to our annual monies that we earn off of that?
Okay, so instead of 300,000 like we got this year.
What was the question?
Okay, she said, how about effect will that have on the I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that.
Annual budget.
What effect will decreasing the foundation have on the annual money we have? We'll just take 6% of $4 million, and now we're down to $240,000 a year that we can spend on stuff. So it's getting, we're not broke, but we don't want to deplete it because it supports other things than major parts of the bill. There was another question I thought over here. Kevin.
Just to follow up on that, then, I assume then that the foundation's annual contribution to the congregational operating budget will also shrink a little bit.
No, that will still stay the same. So what it means is that what goes into the budget, the question was, in case you didn't hear it, is if we go down and have less money on an annual basis, will that make what goes into the church budget smaller? And the answer is no. You would still get that, which means then the remaining money that's available for other stuff is less. All right, let's go. Shirley.
What percentage of the annual budget is contributed by the foundation?
What? How much?
$30,000.
$30,000 a year comes out of the foundation into the annual budget. And some of that, my understanding, correct me, is people that left money to the foundation to support the annual budget. And so they wanted to continue to tithe after they were
That
gone.
is additional $30,000.
Okay, next person.
But we took that out this year.
Oh, okay. There's a mic coming to you.
I get a mine. I get a mine. I have two questions. A broad question is there a 10, 20, 50-year master plan for the facility? And then a more specific question is how is what's the specific energy for the chilled water and the heated water? Is it on-site or does it come from somewhere else?
Okay. The first question was
Master plan.
master plan. What we're trying to develop right now is get a list of all the issues that we have and get that together and prioritize it, kind of rate it somehow. And then all the chilled and heated water comes from under the sanctuary. So there's as part of the tour, I can walk you into the boiler room. We have 4 hot water boilers that creates the hot water for the system. And then we have a chiller. If you notice the wooden fence on the north side of the sanctuary, that's where the chiller is and the cold water comes from.
So I have a follow-up then. Has there been discussion on geothermal and the energy savings along with
Well, we looked at that.
Question was about geothermal.
Yeah, geothermal. And we looked at that. That was the 7.75 million. Because what we were going to do was we were going to convert to a water source heat pump. But we were going to use a cooling tower. We were going to put wells in because most of the north parking lot would be wells. And the thought was that wasn't a good solution. But they were going to use our piping system, so they were going to run cool water in to a heat exchanger in all these rooms that would then use that water to heat or cool the refrigerant as needed then to run the refrigeration lines. But that could still be a long-term goal, but that was part of that $7.5 million or 7.75 was every room that we were going to put one of these units in was going to have to be demoed. So it means the ceiling had to be come down because we had to put all the equipment up into the ceiling. And that's where a lot of the expense was. Another question?
How has the foundation been primarily funded? Is it mostly from wills and trusts?
You want to answer the question on how the foundation is funded? And I'm going to have Bruce talk about that because he's got the long-term history of that.
I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about the foundation and why we're so fortunate here. We've got a lot to be thankful for.
Put it up closer.
A lot to be thankful for. Back in 1998 and 1999 when the foundation was started, there were some people that saw the need for us to have monies for emergencies, major changes, that type of thing. So the money that we have there now is really, a lot of it is based on, gifts from the past. And so, because we have now, almost $6 million, and by the way, that is the market value, that's not cash. So tomorrow it might be some different number. But because we're able to use the money out of the foundation, we were able to get started on a lot of these things. Otherwise, we would have had to go through a capital campaign, as an example, which would take probably at least a year. We're really fortunate to be able to get started on this right away. Which brings up the point, we're going to be taking roughly $2 million in that neighborhood, and maybe even a little bit more, because the more we dig into these things, the more expenses we find, problems that we find. We need to some way think about how we can replenish the money that we are taking out of the foundation so that we can get back the earnings power. The foundation is really a money machine. Because we invest the money, and most years we get anywhere from 5 to 7% of return on our investments. With less money to invest, we obviously are not going to make as much money. So I guess what we'd like to do is the first part, after we get through a lot of this work, take a look and refocus on the foundation and how we might be able to rebuild or replenish the money that we have taken out. So probably in the first quarter, you'll see some activities of making a kind of an awareness campaign about the foundation. And we have been very, very fortunate to be able to continue the foundation by the giving of families and so on, to be able to keep the foundation growing. And we've been very fortunate about that. We'd like to make sure that people understand what the foundation can do and how we can grow it and how you can participate in that growth.
All right, any other questions?
Yes.
Ben.
Did the changes proposed so far improve the church's carbon footprint?
The question was, have the changes that we're proposing improved the carbon footprint? And I would say probably no. Because we're still using hot water boilers, we're still using a chilled water system. It may, in some respects, because we have better temperature control, then we'll have less temperature extremes in the building, so maybe the system doesn't have to work as hard, so we may save. One of the things that most of this building is not used during the week, and so we don't necessarily heat and cool like the sanctuary and everything to the same temperature that we would on a Sunday morning. So again, unlike a building that's occupied fully, 5-6 days a week, we're only fully occupied on Sunday mornings. But yes, we were hoping for something better, but we couldn't afford that in today's environment. But we are trying, all the lighting that's going back is LED lighting. So, we're doing it that way with our lighting, but with the heating system, it's the same old system we've always had. But hot water heat and chilled water is, my understanding, more efficient than your hot air furnace at home. So, we're helping along that line.
Mike, can I just say one thing that, as we thought about that first proposal, one of the things that also got our attention was not only would it require demo in a lot of the rooms, but we asked about a timeline. And they said, well, if you could move out of the building, we could probably do it in a year. And that wasn't a good option for us because to find different, and it would have required pretty extensive work in the sanctuary as well. So there were some aesthetic reasons and practical reasons why that didn't fit well either.
Okay, any other questions?
You
Yes?
thought about a fundraiser, capital improvement fund raising?
Question is, have we thought about a capital campaign to do this? That has been toyed with. Since to do the big system changeover, I don't think that was practical. To do the small one, yeah, that would be practical. I think what we would do now is we would use that instead of replenish the foundation so that we have funding in the future to make these other changes. Yes, Maria?
Thank you. We also are very aware that our stewardship campaign for 2026 is getting ready to kick off. And so to keep these separate, we've talked about the replenishment efforts and capital campaign raising starting in January. So that is part of the conversation, but because we are so fortunate that we do not have to dip into our budget funds to even try to do this. So we're trying to keep those two very separate.
If we got to a point we chose to do a capital campaign again, if we got to the point we chose to do a capital campaign again, would those people that are looking at that consider what we did when we did this end of the building, and that a certain percent of that capital campaign would be tied to something outside of the church, like that was?
Oh, like a tithing?
Yeah, tied
mechanism?
to something outside of here also. Just
We'll probably be looking for
I'll let you get it.
We'll probably be looking for volunteers to help design said capital campaign. So if you have ideas, just let us know. Or just let someone know, write it down, or I'm just going to be in charge of it. Okay. Not me.
All right, any other questions? Now, one thing I'll mention that's not on the slide is we're going to have some significant, especially in Mead Hall, we're going to have to totally rebuild that room. So if you have a skill set or a desire or something that would be willing to help paint a wall, help design the interiors, pick out our color schemes going forward, or things like that, let me know, because we will need people to do that, or we'll have to hire it done. And we've got some people that are willing to paint. We have some people that might do some construction, minor construction stuff. But if you've got a desire and the ability to assist in that, that's a way to help us that doesn't require, it requires time more than money. So anything else?
Can I jump on that for a second? Sorry, I feel like I'm monopolizing here, but so Friday morning, Mike and Bruce and Kevin and I met the guys from the design team in Mead Hall, because we're thinking about how many air handlers we actually need for down there. So they're contemplating that. But as we were standing there, we were looking, we think it'd be great to have showers in Mead Hall, so when groups, work teams come through town, they could stay down there. And I was told that's why Mead Hall was built in the first place, so overnight groups could stay there, but there's no showers. There's huge bathrooms, but no showers. So we started dreaming about that, and then we looked at the kitchen that has a built-in little kitchenette in it, and the oven is, about 12 inches across, and there's a built-in refrigerator that we defrosted, and it's already frozen over again, and there's a wall around this tiny kitchen, and we said, well, gosh, what if we knocked out that wall and built a countertop and a serving counter, and you could actually have a meal down here if you were spending the night. And so the good part about this is it's made us dream about some spaces and about how we use the building, which to me is part of the 5 and 10-year plan and even 50-year plan. Like, how do we use this place, and how does it serve us and not us always serving the building? So if you meet in a room a lot and you go, I wonder why this is this way, write it down on one of the pieces of paper on your table, because I think right now is the time to ask all kinds of questions. And if this is going to be my swan song at First United Methodist Church, we're going to do it upright.
Carol.
Can you please explain again about the wrapping of the pipes? It takes 20,000 to unwrap them and what, 30,000 to rewrap them?
The asbestos removal.
The what?
The removal of the piping and the rewrapping.
Oh,
That
okay,
we
the
said-
asbestos you mean, of that, okay. So, all these pipes, since they carry chilled water, or hot water, but predominantly chilled, it's 50-degree water, is what I understand. And so in a humid space, it's gonna sweat, like your iced tea glass sweats in the summer. And so what that does is it starts corroding the pipes from the outside. So to prevent that, they wrap the pipes in insulation. And it also helps maintain temperature control and things like that. Well, there are sections here that have been removed, for what reason we don't know, and never rewrapped, and so that's some of the corroded pipes we're seeing in this area. So what they did is they went in and all that insulation was asbestos, because that was the insulating material of choice in the 40s and 50s and earlier. That was the Wonder material. So we've taken that out, and then as they replace the pipe, then they will rewrap them with whatever the current standard is that will hopefully prevent the pipes from sweating and causing corrosion issues.
I think Carol's question was about the number they gave us to unwrap, but the number to wrap.
Oh, okay. That's not on the sheet. We have water lines that support, like the bathrooms and the kitchen and what have you. And those are also wrapped in asbestos. And so while they were abating the asbestos, we got a quote to $2,000 to take the coating off those lines that have asbestos on them. And we thought, well, that's a pretty good deal. Well, we could do that. And then they came back then with the cost to rewrap them. That was going to be $22,000. And so we thought, that can wait, because those were not causing an issue, and it's water lines, and so it's just easier. So that's what we're running into in costs. Some things are inexpensive, and then the next time you turn around, something's a lot more money. Anything else? We got maybe 5 to 10 minutes before people go into the second service. Need mosey on down there.
And if you have time, take the tour that Mike is about to
And
lead.
what I'll do is I'll take you a tour and I'll show you the holes where we've got everything opened up, and you can look in and you can see the rusty pipes and the dirty pipes. And so we're going to go 114, 112. Might take you up, depending on how people are. We can take you up, show you where the air handler is up here. We'll take you down to the the mead hall, and let you see what that ceiling looks like, what the kitchen looks like, what the bathrooms look like. Because one of the members of the trustees says, "I've been a member here 5 years, and I've seen rooms tonight I've never seen." So this is your opportunity maybe to experience other parts. And again, if you want, I can take you into the boiler room and show you where we get our hot water from. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Got one behind you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the mold you just found on some of the ceilings?
Okay.
And what we're gonna do about that?
All right, the question is about mold. If you haven't heard, we've had some mold issues in the church. Again, it's because we have high humidity. I'll just kind of go through all of it. We found some outside here, outside this door last Sunday. Probably about a 6-foot wide spot that, if I didn't know better, it looked like somebody with a greasy head that was too tall went by and swiped it. Anyway, we got that wiped down. We've seen some mold in the lattice work around the organ pipes. We discovered mold in the music library, pretty significantly. We were lucky that it only was on the boxes that hold the music and not the music. Otherwise, we'd have lost several $100,000 worth of music. So these are issues we're dealing with. By having something that's not working right and something else happens along.
Kevin went up and looked. I see him so he could nod his head. Kevin went up and looked last week after we saw that, and there was no water standing above that. We don't know why it suddenly appeared in that particular place last Sunday, so it's an ongoing search, along with the ghost in the elevator.
All right. So it's time for the tours, or if you want to go on to the service. If you want to go on a tour, I'll stick around here.